To you from Bangkok. Murad is at home in Dubai.
Much better.
Welcome back to Attention Market with Kain, and I were obviously joined by Murad. So why don't we jump straight into it? Everyone has been so excited to get you onto the show because memes have taken on a world of their own. They're not only the highest performing asset of the cycle, but they're also the highest attention grabbing asset. They're the things that are driving L1 flows. They are the things that are historically would get your attention by making people rich. And that's the crux that it comes down to. It's like, what drives attention better than making people rich? Is there more substance to it, or is that it? It's just a fair inclusion way of providing an equal market to everybody, and whoever wants or whoever is risky enough to participate gets the benefit.
Yeah. So without a shred of doubt, there's definitely a self-interest component to all of this. Otherwise, none of us would be here. But my thesis for the past 6 months has been that there's without a doubt kind of a non-monetary element here as well. And I think earlier, like a few months ago, a lot of people would hand wave sort of meme coins away as pure gambling or pure brain rot or pure degeneracy. But my long-standing thesis has been that there's definitely something more to this. I think meme coins are quite multidimensional. At the surface, they seem like just childish jokes, kind of immature Ponzi schemes, etc. But I believe that once you kind of dig a little bit deeper, there's definitely some substance here. Obviously, to different extents with different meme coins. But my overall thesis is you alluded that there is a selfishness component here and also kind of something else, right? And my belief is that the bigger the something else part in a certain meme coin, the better, the bigger that meme coin will become. That's kind of my whole thesis, right? Now, there's many angles here. It's a very multidimensional issue, but I'll focus on like the top two or top three for the sake of brevity. So my thesis is, a lot of people have been talking about how meme coins have arisen specifically in the context of this current cycle as sort of younger people or smart retail's counter reaction towards kind of like the centralized exchange VC token founder kind of supply chain, right? High FDV, extremely high starting market caps, and so on and so forth. I'm sure you guys understand the dynamics here. But I think that's only a small part of it. I think only focusing on that is a little bit myopic. And I actually think like the key to understanding all of this lies in zooming out a little bit. So first things first, I actually think the meme coin supercycle began in 2013. That's December 2013. That's when Dogecoin was first invented.
Yeah.
And so if you actually like, people think that meme coins are like just like this cycle thing, but if you actually look, it's a geometric progression, right? At the 2017 top, we only had one meme. At the 2021 top, we had around 2,000. There was a famous dog season. And right now we have like 10 million or more, right? So clearly this is something that's already been going on for 12 years. It's not a 2-year thing. It's something that's already been happening for 12 years. And I wouldn't be surprised personally if, frankly speaking, I think this keeps on happening all the way until fiat money is replaced by BTC, right? That's what I think is going to happen personally, right? Now, meme coins aside, I have a theory about why all of this is happening in the first place. So the reason this is happening is, your grandfather in the developed world, right? In the Anglo-Saxon world, in the 1950s, 1960s, he could have a minimum wage job, somehow ended up with a house, somehow ended up with a wife, 3 kids, they all went to college, and somehow it all worked out, right? Obviously, somebody with like a low income or middle income, this is like a pipe dream these days, or increasingly becoming so. People are starting to get priced out of things. So people with any kind of disposable income, whether it's $1,000 or $500,000, the younger people, they intuitively know that the kind of returns that the stock market or real estate has enjoyed over the past 30 years, probably not going to be the case over the next 30 years, unless they invent AGI 8 years from now or something, right? And, you know, even with BTC, ETH, let's be real, right? Like, a lot of people, they think in 2-year timeframes at best, most of them even in weeks or months, right? And so they know that the 3-4x that BTC or ETH or Sol or whatever might give them in the next couple of years, probably not going to revolutionize their life, right? Now, stepping out furthermore, right? The younger people, Zoomers, even some of the millennials, they don't have as much money as the older generations. They don't have as much political power. They don't have as much clout. But what is the one thing they're good at? The one thing that Zoomers are good at is social media. So my actual theory is meme coins are kind of emergently coming about because they are assets that are hyper optimized to thrive, or to be precise, to go viral on social media rails, right? And, you know, my long-standing theory has been that the vast majority of altcoins in the history of crypto thus far have already been meme coins. They've essentially just been tech memes, especially the ones that aren't producing revenue that anywhere near justifies their valuations, right? And so pure memes are going to produce better memes than tech memes, and that's why they're going to dominate. Now, just like the namesake, just like the name of this podcast, attention market, of everything that I've just discussed right now, I believe that essentially, like, continuously growing money supply around the world and inflationary pressures, they alter people's chemistry. Like, I think even at the biochemical level, it alters like people's brains. Anxiety, stress, mental health, all of this stems from this like kind of like time and financial pressures, right? And I think all of these reasons put together is essentially why meme coins are emerging. More overall, I think as there's more and more money around the world overall from all central banks, I think attention is going to be kind of quote unquote trading at a relative premium over cash flow and fundamentals. Because, you know, in traditional finance, whenever you're extrapolating a valuation of any kind of financial instrument from its cash flows, you look at like the next 12 years, the next 14 years, right? But because the world is getting more short-termist and anxious, people aren't thinking like in such long terms anymore. And so that's why attention is gradually becoming like more important than quote unquote fundamentals and utility and cash flows. And I think like everything that I described is just like a small slice of the reasons why meme coins are kind of coming to the forefront right now. Now, last thing I'll say is, you know, if this cycle is anywhere in any way similar to previous ones, which is like 4.5 years or something around something around there in terms of time, usually what you see is the theme that dominates in year 3, it ends up going ballistic in year 4. And I think right now is quote unquote year 3. Next year is going to be year 4, according to these time scales, for the sake of simplicity, obviously. And I believe that meme coins are going to continue to dominate next year.
So Matt Levine from Bloomberg has this like very interesting arc that he's been on, right? Where, like, you know, when meme stocks first arose, he was like, "This is madness. What are we doing?" And then he's like, "Maybe there's something here." And then it progressed and progressed and progressed, and it's gone to the point where he's like, "Maybe fundamental analysis was a meme." Like, maybe we all lost our minds for like 60 years and we thought that we could like assess things, you know, the value of things from like a financial standpoint. And we're going back to our roots of like, it's just all attention. Do you like, does that align for you? Do you think that like that the whole meme stock process is another symptom of this overall thing that you're describing?
Yeah, for sure. So there's a meme that kind of encapsulates this, which is a guy throwing Warren Buffett's favorite securities analysis book by Benjamin Graham, I believe, into the trash can. But
Intelligent
more
investor,
on a
yeah.
more on a more serious note, I think because central banks are printing money and that process is accelerating quite fast over the past 4 or 5 years, it's kind of changing the nature of finance, and it's also changing the nature of people's behavior. So some people think that meme coins are about gambling. I actually think meme coins are about survival, because young people, they actually don't have that many avenues left. You know, a lot of people focus on the trends or forces or dynamics inside of the crypto industry, but I think we need, or even just finance overall, but I think we need to zoom out into the world at large. You know, AI is definitely coming for people's jobs. It already, that process has already begun. You know, for the few jobs that are still in place, it's very competitive. Income inequality, wealth inequality is super high in the West. It's even higher outside of the West. And I think all of these things, they like play a role in this, right? Now, there's actually many ways to think of meme coins. Like the biggest one is tokenized communities, but also it is a tokenized statement. It is a tokenized message, right? And super roughly, the way you can think of it is, one of the frameworks, right, is whenever you're buying a meme coin, you're actually making that message be heard louder around the world. And whenever you're selling it, you're kind of like muting it more, right? And GME and even some of these memes from this current cycle in crypto, I think this is essentially, excuse my French, but it's like a tokenized middle finger by young people, not only to some of the VC shenanigans inside of crypto, but even to the world at large, right? And people are essentially investing in things that they resonate with emotionally. They're essentially finding a sanctuary online. That's kind of like the non-monetary part that I was alluding to in the early minutes of our call. And essentially, all of this that we're talking about, it's happening while in the background you have a situation where, at the risk of sounding a little bit blasphemous, I think traditional religion is losing product market fit, especially in the developed world, right? And I think what's happening is people are finding kind of like different physical and digital spaces. You see it a little bit with Marvel, Harry Potter, Magic the Gathering, video games, music festivals, ayahuasca retreats, keto, soul cycle, and so on and so forth. But you also see this with kind of financial assets. I'm sure you guys know how insanely culty Tesla and Apple holders are. We've already seen this with crypto, even before memes. This is the thing, right? Even before memes, we've seen this with Cardano, XRP, Link, obviously BTC and ETH, right? And so my argument is that there's nothing new here with memes. It's just a different kind of veneer. But at the end of the day, what all of these things are simply groups of people, right? That's why I always say altcoins and meme coins, they're the same thing in many cases, right? In 95% of cases. And it's also not about the meme, and it's not about the software. It's all about the people. So really, all of these things, they're just groups, and they're groups of people that have their kind of tokenization layer on top, and they're doing whatever they can. In the case of alts, it's kind of like software-related marketing, metrics, etc. And in the case of memes, it's
Partnerships.
kind of like, exactly. It's like videos, it's art, it's a bunch of like bull posts, schizo posts on Twitter, and all of these things. And my argument is, I think next year a lot of these things will start moving to TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and Reddit and 4chan, like we usually see once every 4 or 5 years. And I think because historically it's young people who create culture and the other demographics follow, young people are going to resonate with memes because memes are already the universal language, right? So I think if attention is the new economy and social media is the attention rails, then memes are going to go viral. That's my thesis. I think they're going to go viral next year.
So a couple of questions. One, we saw maybe in like, the early part of the 2010s, the rise of influencers, right? And there's like billionaire influencers now because they're able to capture attention. But it was almost a person as a meme or something like that. Do you see the evolution of like the influencer games into memes or this attention market evolution as like more efficient, less efficient, different? Like, how do you kind of contextualize it within the like rise of influencers?
Yeah, so I think people generally in aggregate trust influencers a little bit more because the trust in corporations and the trust in institutions um, is on the decline, and influencers, at least at the surface level, appear to be individual human beings just like themselves. And I think that what explains like the rise of like individual humans like being more popular than entire corporations. In the context of memes, each meme has its own like governance style and community style. You have to kind of analyze it on a case by case basis. That being said, um, we'll probably see like 15 to 20 quote unquote roaring kitty equivalents next year. Ideally, in my opinion, though, the best is when there's no single leader, but rather I think it's much more anti-fragile and robust if a given community has like 7 8 of them, or even more, so that instead of it being like a top-down centralized thing, and then the cult is more similar to something like Cardano, Hex, or Luna. I think it's much better when it's more distributed, more decentralized, both in terms of ownership, but also in terms of like attention propagation. And then it's more like a swarm of bees or a swarm of birds. That's much better, in my opinion.
Right. And so this idea of like memes being a way to monetize attention, right? If you're there's almost like an egalitarian aspect to this of like the barriers to entry to meming something into existence are like almost nothing now, right? You can we've got the technology, to make Doge required like a level of like technical sophistication. To make Peanut, it requires pretty minimal sophistication, right? Obviously, it requires memetic sophistication, but not technical sophistication. So now you've opened up this attention game to a much wider range of people. Do you imagine that this will be like a similar thing to NFTs, but without the unit bias issues that we saw with NFTs? Is it like, in which, that's super bullish. If that's your thesis, that
Yep.
like NFTs got destroyed by unit bias because they were too expensive for the average person to hold, then this gets pretty crazy.
Yeah. So two answers here. First is the meme coin space. It actually has two subcategories. One is what you alluded to earlier, which is kind of like attention games, short-term gambling, kind of like pump funds, news events, that type of headlines, that type of stuff, right? And then the other, which is personally what I'm more interested in, is more like long-term community building. For a lack of a better example, it's trying to build the next Doge, right? And that's the one that I'm more interested in. And I think that second one, it again, it answers the NFT part of your question better, which is, so at its core, I actually think the thesis for meme coins and the thesis for NFTs is a very similar thesis, because at their core, they are both tokenized communities. I would actually even extend that further. I would say for most altcoins is the same. It's the same triangle. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
Like you said, I think even though the thesis is the same, the financial instrument that expresses the thesis is much more effective in the case of meme coins. So if you actually study even the most successful NFT collections, what ends up happening at quote unquote equilibrium, you have like 4,000 holders effectively shilling 10,000 illiquid JPEGs, not to mention the prohibitive floor price, right? which prices out kind of low income, middle income people from participating and therefore from shilling, right? Now, in the case of meme coins, what you're going to end up having is you're going to have 1 million people promoting one single liquid coin. And I'm sure you can already sense how much more effective and efficient this is,
It's
right?
much more efficient. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's super interesting. So basically, you're flipping the thesis on its head. You're saying that everyone who would have invested in crypto in the early days because they were there for the tech, in reality, it's the same group of people. They're just crystallized differently. They gathered together because they had a shared interest. They had a shared community. They realized that the thing they're working on is a little bit fringe, and there are only a certain amount of people all over the world that want to do this. And that's what the original community was. That's where Bitcoin started, and that's where Doge started. You're saying that you're basically meme coins are that, but accelerated to whichever small minority group community that you want to build, whether you like the pictures of cats or whether you go all the way to the other end where you find something funny on the internet and then build a
You know what's
community around
crazy?
that. Like,
You know what's crazy? I've been saying for the last like month or so that and you know, Igor, this is you've heard me say this, like early communities. Let's take Chainlink as an example because I think they're a really good example. It's not just that they bought tokens and got rich; they also were right. You know, they had this contrarian thesis that oracles were good. You know, everyone told them they were idiots. Oracles are a terrible idea. You shouldn't do it. And it was its own meme. Like if you think about it through this lens, right? Like oracles were a meme. They were like oracles are a good meme. Everyone said no, it's a dumb meme, and like the tech is secondary. Like it doesn't even matter whether the oracles work. It's like, you know, the more people use oracles, it's like the meme is propagating, right? Like so I when you said, you know, the tech was the meme in these early communities, you know, whether it's Cardano, I don't know what that tech is, but something, I'm sure, right? Like hawks, you know, the hawk meme, right? It's quite interesting through this lens. All of a sudden, you know, everything's memes at some level, but it actually crystallizes it for me. Like oracles are a meme, and Link was the way to express the oracle meme into like a financial instrument.
Exactly. And you know, what Chainlink did very well, I don't know if it was top down systematic or it was bottom up emergent, probably the latter. But what they did is they actually had a diehard community on 4chan, and they actually had these like blue frogs with like these white boxes that are connected through chains, and it was very visual, you know, it was very visual, and you can kind of you can make those memes go viral like much more efficiently. And I actually think that some of these other current communities like even Monad and Barachain, they're essentially like trying to do similar things today right now. So Link was very early in that sense. I don't even know if it was like the Chainlink leadership that kind of like planned all this. I
I
think
don't
it
think it
was
was. It was
I think
emergent. Yeah.
it definitely wasn't.
I think it was 50 people on 4chan that kind of like made it happen, and then that exploded. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. You talk about these guys
It's
that turn into champions for you. It's so true. As Kain said, if you make them rich and you make them right, they will love you forever. They will become your most loyal followers. You can do no wrong. They will start arguing with the guys spreading the FUD on your behalf. And that's really powerful. You need people in your corner. You need people that understand, in Chainlink's case, what they were doing, what they were building, and why it took so long, and why it was not good and not used for a really long period of time. And then suddenly DeFi came along, and there's their use case. So what
you
happens
know
to
what's
the
interesting? Well, the interesting thing about that, right, is like again, if you look through this mimetic lens, why has DeFi been in this 3-year bear market? We actually had a bad meme. We all pivoted, and I'll put my hand up and say, like, I was responsible for this, right? Like, real yield, real revenue was this meme that we pivoted to, and it's like a boring, bad meme. Like, no one's excited about, like, you know, revenue. And so we sort of get like, there was a period where it was like yield farming, right? And it was like weird vegetables, and like it was like very visual, like to your point about like chain, you know, blue boxes and chains and stuff, right? Like it was very visual, you know, yams, like there was all this crazy stuff going on, and then we were like got too boring.
Yeah. So first of all, to the earlier point that Yegor said, which is, you know, in order to build a strong community, you need to make poor people rich. This is how you build hardcore cults. If you actually look at this, like the earliest time you could buy Ethereum, it was, I believe, for like 33 million. The earliest time you could buy Link, it was 27 million. The earliest time you could buy BNB chain, it was 28 million. And so, you know, airdrops don't build community. What builds community is poor people getting rich together with you over this journey of 1 to 3 years. And then, just like Yegor alluded to, that people, after they make some money with it, they will quit their jobs. They will make that coin their whole identity, their whole life, and they will pounce on anybody on social media who dares say one bad thing about it, right? And that's kind of how you have these hardcore communities. Now, Kain, to what you said is the pivot to real revenue. You know, the thing is that most retail, like, let's be real, anybody with a net worth under $1 million, they don't come to crypto to essentially look for quasi equities. They don't come to crypto for cash flows. What people come to crypto for is to catch those crazy parabolic moves that happen once every 4 years. That's what people want the most, right? Now, that being said, obviously, I see the following future for crypto. I think we're going to have 4 major asset classes. The first is kind of like the store of value. It's BTC. To some extent, you can argue that's ETH and Sol. You're going to have stable coins. That's pretty self-explanatory. You're going to have cash flow coins, which is the altcoins that survive. They'll need to actually like produce cash flows, produce revenue, produce profits, and distribute some of those to stakeholders in one way or another. Hopefully, cleared up regulations allow that to happen. And then the fourth thing is meme coins, right? Whether you think they're vessels of faith, tokenized communities, vessels of belief, whatever you want to call them, but I think they're here to stay at least for the next 10, 15 years. Now, what's happening this cycle is, you know, up until today, all of these altcoins, the reason they have been so overvalued is because people around the world use them essentially as gambling chips for their respective narrative. And unfortunately, I think tech founders, VCs, market makers, etc., what they've been engaged in for the past 10 years is what I call global IQ arbitrage. Unfortunately, hundreds of millions of people around the world, they look at these tokens and they think of them as quasi equity, which they're obviously not. They're loose tech meme coins that are loosely attached to some piece of software, right? And I think the VC complex called them 110 IQ. They're essentially taking advantage of the 85 IQ, call them roughly retail around the world, and essentially it's a transfer of wealth. That's what it is. Now, what meme coins are doing, and this is by the way why I believe meme coins, they're not degeneracy. They actually represent purification of the space. They represent maturity. They represent evolution, maturation, and they're actually going to act as a checks and balances system against all of the bullshit that I alluded to. Right now, what's going to happen is, you know, altcoins, there is some utility component which is minimal, revenue component which for 99% of them is minimal, and the rest of it was just kind of community, memetics, speculation, attention, narrative, blah blah blah, right? And what meme coins are actually doing this cycle, and I think this is not a 1 year thing, I think it's a secular shift that is going to kind of unfold over several quarters or even several years. Meme coins, they're stealing the attention part, the community part, the belief part, the gambling part, the speculation part. right? Which means that in the future, for altcoins to survive, they'll either need to solve a legit serious problem or have legit serious cash flows, because all of that other stuff is going to flow towards meme coins. And I think this rotation, what I call tech to meme rotation, is still happening, and it's still yet to continue even more.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So when you this is maybe a bit of a pivot, right? When we look at the current anti meme coin FUD, right? And what my favorite thing about crypto is, if you fade something and it pumps and you miss it, you can't just leave well enough alone. You can't just let it go on its merry way and let everyone be happy. You have to try and kill it, right? And so there's a bunch of people that are sidelined that missed out on memes, mid-curved it, whatever you want to call it, right? Do you think that as this gains momentum, we start to like reel those people in and they go, you know what? Because there's always a new meme, like you can just, Peanut, right? I know a bunch of people who bought Peanut. It was the first meme coin they bought because they were paying attention to the election, and now they're like, oh, meme coins actually maybe they're okay, right? Like, do you think that there's a world where like we kind of reach consensus again by like sucking everyone into this meme coin reality?
Yeah, so first of all, bull markets or bull trends, they need to be built on shadows of doubt, shadows of haters, shadows of faders, etc., right? And there's people out there building very, very serious software for the past decade, and I am sure it does make them feel a little bit bitter seeing some people make more money than they've made in 10 years over a single month off of a meme coin. So their emotions are totally understandable. However, technology and financial markets, they are kind of two separate things. And it's not necessarily about like morality and ethics, but as we've alluded to earlier, it's about kind of local trends and attention, right? Now, I think goes without saying that similar to altcoins, 99.999% of them, probably an even higher percentage than in altcoins, in terms of meme coins, they're just going to bleed to zero, right? My belief, however, is that 3 or 4 of them are going to end up being like Doge in the sense that they can be multi-cycle. And we've already seen evidence of meme coins being able to be multi-cycle, right? Obviously, Doge is on its 3rd cycle right now, 4th cycle right now. Then Flocky made new highs, so it's already a new cycle high. SHIB may or may not make new highs, we'll see, etc., right? So I think most of these will end up being pump and dumps, but a few of them will end up like being tokenized communities that will survive for years to come. And personally, that is the ones that I'm trying to identify.
Right.
Do you not get nervous that we're just creating a bunch of mercenary investors that are just chasing the next thematic meme coin that they see, or they might just be artificially creating it, like a bunch of guys getting around saying, okay, we're going to pump this one and tell everyone that it's a really good community behind it. And that creates, I think that the reason that people don't like meme coins very much is because at least with DeFi, they could point to some substance. In the early days with Bitcoin, or even while they were exploring with Doge, like at least they could point to some of the technology. With Pump.Fun, like you can create 50 in the space of 10 minutes. So like that's why people don't like it, because they're like, oh, there's nothing behind it. There's no like underlying value. And we're here saying actually the community is the value. The story is the value. The people behind it is the value.
I mean, let me introduce you to a little token I like to call Bitcoin. Like, it's the same thing, right? Like, Bitcoin is a tech meme and also a cultural meme and like an ideological meme. It's like it encapsulated all these different memes at the same time, right? It's why it did so well. And it was the only way to express that kind of meme. So, yeah, I don't know. That's my take. I'm curious what you think, Murad, but
Yeah, so the way I see it is, because this is a decentralized world, you will always have some proportion of bad actors, regardless of what trend this is in. You've had plenty of bad actors in DeFi, NFTs as well. There's nothing new under the sun. However, there are a series of filters and heuristics that you can use, quantitative and on-chain ones, to kind of cut the wheat from the chaff, so to speak, right? And this is essentially, first of all, I focus on things that have already been out there for at least 7 or 8 months. This already cuts 99% of the scams away. Why? Because by their nature, scammers are impatient people that are looking for a quick buck and are looking for kind of like a shortcut, right? If it's a community that has been grinding for 8 months and they're still pushing, it means that there's something genuine there. So that's kind of heuristic number one. Second of all, you can run a bunch of different data science kind of analytics on the wallets, on the holders, on the transactions, on the swaps, and then you can figure out the Gini coefficient, the HHI coefficient, how decentralized it is, how distributed it is, how diamond-handed the holders are. And when you piece, and there's like 20 others, and when you piece all of these things together, you can clearly see which ones are legit and which ones are extremely cabal, where 3 people own 80% of the supply through a bunch of algorithmic wallets, right? Now, even if you don't want to go that deep, there are services emerging that show you a lot of this stuff. Holder Scan, Jeet Screener, and my favorite that's soon to launch is Bubble Maps V2. They're going to analyze each meme coin and interaction between each holder down to like 12 hops, and then the interactions between hops, and you can clearly see which ones are like very honest, very organic, very bottom up, and which ones are the cabal scams that you alluded to.
So, just a question on that. Do you think that this Binance pivot to like listing early stage meme coins blows out your 7-8 month thesis at all? Right, like if they're going to list something in a month, it might compress the price discovery curve a little bit. Or do you think that you're gonna need to get more sophisticated faster about checking all of these on-chain metrics?
Yeah. So while Binance listing is a positive, it cannot revive a community that was already not there. I think ultimately, you need a lot of other ingredients other than just the Binance listing. You need certain kind of time capitulation. You need exams by way of large price drops. You need supply to be relatively concentrated in the hands of true believers that have been patient for a year while the price did nothing. So, centralized exchange listings are part and parcel of this cabal trickery, so to speak. But those guys, they can manufacture volume for a couple of weeks. They can manufacture attention for a couple of weeks. But if there isn't an army of 1,000 schizos that are generally obsessed with a coin right there, that aren't even going to sell even after 1,000x, then it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? So there are multiple pieces to this formula.
So another question is, I've had this view that ICOs never had the chance for the market to figure out how to police them, right? Like they as things got really crazy in late 2017, and there were so many scams and so many different things, we didn't get to shake out this process. But it feels like what you're describing is the market getting more efficient at filtering out the cabals. Like, do you have a sense that is happening? Like, all of these tools popping up. Is there anything else that you sort of see in terms of like the empirical price action of different things, like the cabals getting, their profits being compressed? Like, what are you seeing that kind of speaks to that, or
Yep. It's a great question. I have 5 or 6 friends that are 24/7 in the trenches. So essentially trading market caps that are like at the pump fund level or slightly higher. And they're saying, and by the way, I've had this thesis, like I said this, I think on a podcast 6 months ago, and I'm still going to say it again. Essentially, you know, when WIF and Popcat got created in late 2023, you had like 100 coins being created per day. Right now, it's like 10,000 coins per day. And in 6 months from now, it's probably going to be 1 million coins per day, right? Which means that your risk reward to participate in these things, it's going to gradually diminish. And what I think is going to happen is it's going to end up being winner take most, or kind of like a sort of a left tail distribution, in the sense that, or sorry, right tail distribution, in the sense that we're going to have 7 or 8 memes that are going to become particularly huge, that hit this sort of critical mass. So my view is like this, right? Just for the sake of simplicity, let's call 1 billion market cap critical mass, right? And I think the way it works is you can say maybe some holder growth rate, some holder count, etc. Right? But for the sake of simplicity, let's call 1 billion. I think the meme coins that reach 1 billion, they're much more likely to go to like 5 billion, 10 billion, right? And then I think for the vast majority of them that fail to hit that 1 billion, they're just going to slowly bleed into obscurity. And so I think ultimately, I think it's going to be like a winner take most situation. And that's why personally, I don't want to, I don't enjoy the lifestyle of like short-term gambling intraday or whatever. I'm trying to identify those like future giants and literally just buy and hold for another year. And that's what I've been kind of preaching since April of this year. And I still think there's another year of this left. To answer one of your previous questions, you said compressed timeframes. Actually, those timeframes for me have more to do with BTC and macro rather than any specific meme coins like centralized exchange listing. Because I think that whatever BTC and ETH or SOL does, the top tier memes, they're going to outperform that even more. And that's where most of my logic comes from.
Yeah. I mean, I think that makes sense. Like, I hadn't actually heard anyone express it. Like, what happens if memes break out of our crypto bubble, right? Now, there's an interesting question, maybe, you know, where we're on an Infinex podcast, right? Which is like, what are the preconditions for meme coins breaking out into TikTok, right? How to, you know, TikTok doesn't have plans for adding a crypto wallet, although, you know, maybe that changes, right? There is an onboarding, on-ramping element to this, right? Of like, oh wow, that's extreme. There is a I guess we should celebrate onboarding and on-ramping people. But there is an onboarding element to this of like, how do you onboard a doom scrolling, you know, TikToker into crypto? Like what's, you know, how does this break out, right? Like the memes themselves might break out, but until they can buy, it doesn't really break out, right?
Yeah. So actually, I think meme coins are going to onboard more new people into crypto this cycle than any other category by far. And how is this going to happen? To some extent, it's going to happen with existing kind of like Robinhoods, Coinbases, Binances of the world. But also, you're seeing new apps like Moonshot and some of their other competitors pop up, which allow you to buy a meme coin in literally 10 seconds on your phone using Apple Pay, right? And that experience is like a 5-second thing. And they obviously don't make somebody create a MetaMask wallet or anything like that. So the UX is quite fast. It's central. I assume I don't know their architecture, but I assume it's centralized behind the scenes, segregated. But ultimately, you're able to withdraw those coins to your own self custody if you so wish, which obviously some percentage of these people are going to end up doing. Obviously, you know, trends, they come from stories, and most exciting stories we've seen come from like these phantom wallet screenshots on Solana, people making money on WIF, people making money on Popcat, and even the smaller gambles as well, right? And people see it's like meme coin, but also some Solana, but also some USDC, and I think this is how onboarding starts. You know, it's part and parcel of every technological revolution to have these speculative bubbles, speculative waves. And I think this is just another chapter in that much bigger story, right? That being said, I'm a big fan of what you guys are building at Infinex. I can sense that you guys are essentially tired of waiting for a single perpetual exchange to build the next Binance. So you are kind of taking matters into your own hands and kind of accelerating history, right? I created an account earlier this morning, and the process was extremely smooth. So I think you guys are working on something valuable. You know, centralized exchanges have quite a lot of power in this industry, and of course, it's the holy grail to recreate that overall stack on chain purely. So I'm a big supporter, and ultimately, I will say, you know, it's important for us to make sure, you know, I think your project is going to encourage the all of the modular pieces of DeFi that you guys are plugging into to kind of take themselves to the next level, because really we need their volumes, we need their liquidity, we need all of that stuff to kind of increase even more to start being competitive with centralized exchanges. But I agree with you, the user experience is probably the biggest piece of the puzzle here. So I am definitely in support.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I've been thinking about, back in the day, I used to onboard people all the time, right? I didn't on ramp them. I wasn't like selling them crypto for fiat, right? But I was onboarding them. I was like, hey, let me give you some ETH. Let me give you some SNX. Let me give you some, Maker or Uni or whatever, right? I'd be talking to them about something and be like, there's this really cool new project. You should check it out. Give them some ETH. And it was, a painful process, obviously, back in the day. Like you try and get them set up with Trust Wallet or Rainbow or something like that. What we want to do is bring that kind of viral onboarding back. And we want people to be able to create a link where I've got some peanut in my account and I'm having a conversation with my Uber driver and I'm telling them how, like, I think, peanut's going to be added to Mount Rushmore or whatever crazy the meme is, right? And I give them, $50 worth of peanut and I'm like, here you go, like you're onboarded now. You're onboarded into crypto. You've got a wallet, and they can cheat it or they can add more or whatever. But we need to like get the friction to onboarding down to like a single click, where I can just send you a link and you're done. You're in. You've got a meme coin.
Right, exactly. And to add to that argument, I would say, you know, the problem with DeFi or overall like crypto tech investing today is that after a decade, the learning curve has become quite steep. A completely new person on the street doesn't want to learn about like restaking derivatives and roll-ups and all of that stuff, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's like if you joined World of Warcraft for the first time ever today, you would have to learn so much about the dynamics that people have been consistently studying since like 2004 or whatever. It would be very difficult to catch up. So it's the same thing. And memes, like I said, they're a universal language. You don't need to be a PhD in cryptography or distributed systems to kind of have an opinion or have a gut feel about them. And that's why they're going to be much more normie friendly, and ultimately that's what sells in the end.
I mean, you've got Zoomers that are like elite memetic creators, right? Like out in the world, like somewhere, and there's like no barrier to entry. They just need to be able to like propagate a meme and they can monetize that, which is kind of insane.
Exactly.
Like why be a startup founder when you can just launch a meme and it's like much more efficient?
Well, that's what they're saying now. They're saying
exactly.
Sorry, I was just going to say
Go
that they're saying that like public company CEOs now need an online profile because they just reach such a bigger audience. They've gone full circle. They're saying that actually now, if you go on podcasts and you can speak and you can talk intelligently about whatever it is that you're doing, the order of magnitude for reach is huge. So maybe that's the outcome. Maybe the outcome is like you first start by building an audience in whatever medium you want, whether it's memes or Twitter or politics, and then you eventually go and do the thing that you want to do, or do you just continue building the audience? But at some point, you
I
want
mean,
to monetize it.
we saw that with influencers, right? Like get attention first and then launch a company to like monetize that attention, right? It wasn't like company first, then it was it was the opposite way around, right? So launch a meme first and then make that meme themed version of, you know, luggage or something, right? Like a peanut themed luggage brand or something, right? Yeah.
It really is branding reinvented for the modern day, right? And this is what a lot of people don't understand. One of the 15 frameworks you can look at memes is they're essentially brands, and you know brands have value even if you isolate away the cash flow component. Brands have value, and the one of the ways to think about memes is essentially new kind of like Zoomer millennial controlled brands, and that's definitely like one of the factors here for sure.
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean
so
decentralized brands, right? Like it's kind of crazy.
yeah. So question for both of you. So we're 7 months after the halving. If you buy into this crypto cycle theory, you've got 18 months after the halving until markets top, usually sometime between then. So call it a year from now. A year from now, November 2025 is market top. Are you still looking for new memes to invest in at that like small pub.fun level? Or are you in the stage that's saying, you know, my threshold is $1 billion, and now I'm looking for the ones that can get to Doge's size. Like, how do you get from 1 to 40? Like, how does Doge get to 200? Like, what are you focused solely on memes? Is this going to ride out all the way to the end of the cycle? Kain, you've been a degenerate for a long time. You invest in a lot of stuff. So where's your head about the meme stuff? Like, do you start now, or do you just continue the bags that you have and build on top of them? Where does that go?
I mean,
Maybe
my
Murad
take
first.
is
Yeah. So on
go. Sorry.
go ahead. Okay. Yeah. So for me, I I'm gonna be focused on memes exclusively this cycle, because I think they will continue to outperform until the very last day of the bull market. Um, you know, I think most of the winners have already been chosen. Maybe a couple have not yet, but I think the vast majority of the big winners have already been chosen. Why? Because community building or cult building, it takes like at least 8 months, and with every passing day, it's kind of like an airplane that needs a landing strip to take off. You can't just build a cult like out of nowhere. You know, it takes time. Even in the best case scenarios, it still takes time. So I'm focused on trying to identify the giants at this point. That's my personal view, and you know, people are gonna gamble. That's never gonna stop, but people want something to believe in. So my view is the biggest meme coins are those that are gonna have kind of like Bitcoin like culture of diamond handing, hodling, evangelizing, and DCAing even more, etc.
So, a question then, like, what's your minimum price in terms of like market cap or FDV that you think like is the threshold for like being through that inflection point of survivability or whatever?
Well, in terms of like hardcore critical mass, I would say it's 1 billion. But in terms of like, uh, in terms of the minimum market cap, where like you're no longer gambling, but you're looking into communities, I would say like 15 to 25 million.
Okay, and so like, do you have a view that your like return on $1 billion market cap token this cycle could still be a 50x? Like, do you think that's conceivable, or are you looking for like a 10-15x?
Yeah. So my top three highest conviction coins right now are SPX 6900, Giga, and Apu. And my respective targets for them are 100 billion, 50 billion, and 33 billion respectively. And they're currently trading at 750 million, 600 million, and 350 million respectively. So
Wow.
here's the thing, right? If it's a cabal meme coin at $1 billion, I don't want to buy it. But if it's a pure, organic, hardcore distributed meme coin with a soul, with a community, with an army of schizos all over the Twitter timeline that are nonstop producing art, then I want to buy it, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, so it's interesting, right? Like I got into meme coins late last year because I wanted to understand what was going on in Solana, and I have a view that like you need to actually get in and do it. It's like DeFi summer. If you were around looking at it, and there were a lot of people who were, but you weren't yield farming, like you didn't really get it, right? Like the dynamics, are hard to understand unless you have skin in the game, you got money at risk. And so I think like the first day that I got into meme coins was like Bowden, right? So I bought some Bowden. I rotated it in like 15 minutes into Tremp, got wrecked, bought some like Mike Tyson. Like I just was like just got like rotating just to like try and understand what the dynamics were, like what threshold of market cap made it more likely to survive, and all that sort of stuff. But it was really like an exercise in education for myself rather than like returns, right? And then I launched a meme coin, the 2192 meme coin, to the synthetics community, airdropped it to them, which was also another very interesting thing because like literally the SNX community are like the biggest cheats. Like they all dumped it. But there were a few hardcore people there were a few hardcore people that held it. And then I turned it into this like meme coin game, and it, all this stuff was going on. And then I was like, okay, I need to get back to like building DeFi, right? Like I mid-curved. And so, when did a bunch of stuff with Infinex and sort of checked out of meme coins. And then I think it was like maybe Mother that kind of got me back in. I was like, you know what? There's so much attention on this drama between Vitalik and also I was kind of mad at Vitalik for like the DeFi stuff at the time. So I was like, all right, I'm going to show you Vitalik. I'm going to buy Mother, right? And so I bought Mother, and I for me, like I oftentimes will just hold things, right? Like I very rarely will sell them. Like all the DeFi tokens that got like Gigarect, Kyber, they're still sitting in my wallet, right? Like even Aragon, I was holding Aragon for like 4 years, and then they just did that redemption for ETH, right? So I tend to just hold things long term. But in the last like month or so, I've been like, okay, I need to get back into this. So I got into like Peanut early, the TDS, the Trump derangement syndrome. Like there's quite a few, and I've tried to get a little bit more analytical about it and like track it and stuff. But I haven't been thinking about it from the perspective that you brought to this conversation, Murad, where it's like these things are going to be the outperformers, the equivalent of like, Solana last cycle, right? That are going to dominate attention, dominate the returns. And so maybe I'm playing in like the small pool too much, right? And I need to like move up. And something like Whiff, I was like, I missed it. Which is like very mid-curve way to think about it, right? Like if it's, if you're talking about things that are $1 billion going to 100, 50 billion or whatever, then yeah, like there's still a lot of returns even on some of those high cap tokens. So I probably need to rethink my strategy because, it's easy to get wrecked on like 5-10 million market cap things, right? There's probably a lot more windy if you go to 50 plus. So yeah, I need to rethink my strategy, I guess is the answer.
Yeah, totally. And again, I would strongly encourage you to take a look at SPX 6900. It's essentially GME on steroids. And I know you guys have added it.
We just listed it
as something you can deposit together with Harry Potter, Obama, Sonic 10, Inu. I love you guys for that. And I hope, Kain, you're going to buy a Sproto and wear it just like you promised. But super briefly, if you don't mind, SPX 6900, it's GME on steroids, but this time they can't turn off the buy button like they did. They can't print more shares. and there's no revenue, there's no boomers, there's no management teams, there's no buildings to kind of slow us down. So it can go much higher, and I think it's going to become the biggest meme coin in human history. My second pick is Giga, which is all about positive masculinity, fitness, stoicism. I know you have been into those things as well, as of the past couple of years, Kain. So I think you can find some alpha there. Now, they're trading at 700, 500 million, but a lot of people make the mistake, oh, it already pumped, it's too expensive. But here's the thing. People don't realize the quality between memes is so the difference in quality is so extreme that the best of the best are going to go to 50 billion or higher. We've already seen evidence of that happening with SHIB, with Doge, and with even a bunch of tech coins last cycle, right? So I think this time around, and last cycle, that wasn't even a meme focus cycle. This cycle, it's a meme focus cycle. Whether you like it or not, memes are the biggest narrative. So I think the winners are going to go to 50 billion. So you should definitely take a look at SPX 6900 and Giga.
Okay, awesome. I'm gonna do some research and see what I can find. This has been amazing. Really appreciate your time, and yeah, I think I told the ticker Bitcoin guys if they deposit $1 million worth of ticker Bitcoin into Infinex, that I'll change my PFP to a Sproto. So let's see if they can make that happen.
Awesome. I'll push them. I'll push them to make that happen.
Thank you so.
Right.
Thank you so much, Murad. It's been awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Talk soon. See ya.
Speak soon.